and gentlemen.
Morning.
Oh, enthusiastic, we like that, better than the weather, okay. Hands up who's taxiing today? So you think, okay, right, we'll see. If you get the answers to the questions right, we'll let you on board. If not, sorry, okay. Right, quick 20 minutes from me then. I'm going to tell you about the Lancaster as an aircraft, give you a few facts and figures about it, and then we'll talk about the crew, okay? Because that's what you guys who are taxiing today will be emulating. You will be those crew members, although slightly more than there would have been, but we'll get through that. So the first Lancaster then, she flew on the 9th of January 1941. Not as ITV and home fires would have you believe, in November 1939, okay? If there was point of view for ITV, I would have been writing in, okay? January 41. But as with everything that comes in new, we have to test it, make sure it's safe. Health and safety in 1941 was German bullets and bombs. It was not mind your head, okay? But we can't say that enough today. So it wasn't until Christmas Eve of 41 that 44 Squadron at RAF Waddington, just 3 miles south of Lincoln, received their Lancasters and became the first operational squadron. Can you imagine that, right? It's Christmas Eve, in come all these magnificent aircraft, and someone walks up and goes, "There you go, son, all yours." Right? I'd be well chuffed. Even if he wasn't wearing a red suit with a big beard, I'd be well chuffed. But it takes a bit of time again, as I say, because you've got to learn to drive it, all right? You can't just nip in and go, okay? So it wasn't actually until March 42 that we did our first operational sorties. And the first daylight raid took place on the 3rd of March 1942. And that was over Heligoland Bight in northern Germany when we were dropping sea mines. On the 4th of March 1942, we actually lost our first Lancaster. Okay, so losses started very quickly and would continue. Nearly half the Lancasters that were built were lost. Okay. Moving forward then, we come to August 1942 and the Pathfinders. Now the Pathfinders would go ahead of the main bombing force and mark the target for us. Gone are the days where we really have to see what we're looking at going to bomb, and we can use what we call TIs, target indication flares. I'll give you more information on how we use those when we get inside, okay, because it's easier to show you the kit. But the Pathfinders, basically, today's method is controlled New Haven. There were 3 Pathfinder methods: New Haven, Parramatta and Wanganui. And I can see you sat there going, what? Okay, like I did when I first heard it. Where do we get the names from? Well, the gentleman who came up with the Pathfinder idea was born in Parramatta, Western Sydney, Australia. His mate who helped him out was born in Wanganui, New Zealand. And the lady who did the typing came from New Haven. Okay, but it actually meant something. New Haven meant the target was clear, we could see exactly what we were doing. Okay, Parramatta meant it was partially obscured, so a bit like today. Okay, if we're at 16,000 feet, trust me, we will not be seeing East Kirkby. And Wanganui, totally obscured. All right, so we're having to really look for these red and green flares and drop our bombs on. So that's the Pathfinders. Moving into 1943 then, the first audience question, okay. Can anyone tell me what took place on the night of the 16th, 17th of May, 1943? Go on, sir.
Dam Busters Raid.
Dam Busters Raid, Operation Chastise, okay, absolutely. Using for the first time the upkeep bomb, the bouncing bomb, 9,250 pounds worth, okay, that's weight, not money, okay. So that was the upkeep bomb. You can see one in the hangar, and as Philip said, we have Guy Gibson's control column and throttle quadrant from his Lancaster on that raid. Halfway down, right hand side, okay, opposite the Dakota. Moving on then, in August 43, we decided that we had to do something about the research facility at Peenemünde. Now Peenemünde, depending on whether you're German or Danish, belongs to you, okay? There's a bit of controversy over where it actually lies. But this was the research facility for the Vengeance weapons, the V-bombs, okay? The V1, the Doodlebug, would come across London and you panicked when the engines cut out, okay? If the engine was going, you were fine. Engine stops, run away, okay? The V2 was much more devastating. And had Hitler actually managed at any stage to take control of the UK mainland, we were going to be used as a launch pad for the V2 rocket to hit America. Okay? It's considered to be the world's first ballistic intercontinental missile. You try saying that, okay? So it's something that we had to do. So we spent quite a few months raiding Peenemünde. In September 1943, the first Lancaster from Canada flew across the Atlantic. How long do you think it took? Give us an idea. Be brave, come on.
14 hours.
14, sir? 15. Oh, see, just a little bit different there. Any advance or decrease on 14 or 15?
12.
12, we're getting there, Mom. Good, okay. 9 hours, 30 minutes. Which, considering that a jet does it in about 4 to 6 hours today, depending on where you're going, that's not bad going on full props, is it? Okay. Vera took 3 days, but she is 70. We will let her off, okay? So 9 hours, 30 minutes. And quite a few Lancasters, I think it was 350, were made in Canada and brought across because we couldn't keep up with production. In November 43, the Pathfinders got a new toy to play with, and it was called H2S radar, and we'll talk more about that when we get inside the aircraft, okay? Moving into 44 then, on the 8th of June 1944, the first Tallboy bomb was dropped. Now, Tallboy was a 12,000-pound bomb, okay? One of which you can see in the hangar. Huge thing. Just like the upkeep, we had to take the bomb bay doors off to fit it in, okay? But, believe it or not, the bombs will get bigger, and we'll get on to those in a minute. But the Tallboy bomb was then used by 617 Squadron, along with 9 Squadron, on the 12th of November 1944, to bomb the Tirpitz. Now, the Tirpitz had plagued us for years. Okay. It used to hide in the Norwegian fjords and then come out and play havoc with the Atlantic and the Arctic convoys, so something had to be done. We tried all sorts. We tried bombing it, didn't work. We tried midget submarines, kind of worked, okay? But we felt that the Tallboy bomb might do the job, and by God did it, okay? And we managed to sink her. Moving into 45 then, on the 19th of March 45, we dropped the first Grand Slam bomb, the biggest bomb of the war, okay, in size, if not in yield, okay. 22,000 pound or 10 ton. Now, it's amazing that the Lancaster only has 10 marks of aircraft, as opposed to the 24 Spitfire marks that came through the Second World War. Because with very, very little modification, we just kept putting bigger and bigger bombs in her belly, and she went, yeah, okay, and away she'd go, okay? Amazing aircraft. So the Grand Slam. To help with the weight, we had to take out the nose and the mid-upper turret, but that was fine because we'd suppressed the German Air Force by this stage. They weren't really fighting back very much, okay? But really, we didn't use the Grand Slam to any great extent. The last Lancaster raid took place on the night of the 25th, 26th of April 1945. 105 aircraft took off from various bomber bases in Lincolnshire and flew to Vallo in southern Norway. 3 days later, we swapped bombs for food with the commencement of Operation Manna. Again, right next to where Guy Gibson's bits and bobs are, you'll see a nice display on Operation Manna. This is where the British Air Force, or Royal Air Force, sorry, were dropping food parcels to the starving Dutch and Belgians. Okay. Now, this was done in agreement with the Luftwaffe, believe it or not, even though VE Day was still a couple of weeks away. They agreed that they would not shoot down any Lancasters on food missions. We just had to fly between certain height levels, okay? Lancasters dropped 6,684 tons of food in 10 days and became nicknamed the Flying Grocers. Not sure I'd be happy if I'd spent my sort of wartime dropping bombs to then be nicknamed the Flying Grocer, but on the other hand, why not? Okay, I'd rather drop food than bombs, to be honest. On VE Day, the 8th of May 1945, the RAF had 55 squadrons of Lancasters, a total of 1,345 aircraft. Got to get these numbers out of my head, honestly, okay? A huge amount. And we then finished dropping food, and we started to pick up prisoners of war with the commencement of Operation Exodus. This is where the Lancs would go into Germany and pick up to 24 POWs at a time. And when we get on board, I'll show you the space that these guys used to sit in, okay? to bring them home. Now, one of the rear gunners that I've been fortunate enough to meet told me it was the only time his crew never wore a parachute or never took parachutes with them. And I said, well, why is that then, William? He said, well, we came to the conclusion if there wasn't enough parachutes for them, we wouldn't have them either. So these guys are still putting their life on the line, because let's face it, engines can go at any time, okay? Bird strikes, who knows what's going to happen. Still putting their lives on the line, even though the war has technically finished in Europe, okay? We still carried on building Lancasters though, because you never can tell when those pesky Germans might start up again. And the last Lancaster was taken into service with the Royal Air Force in February 1946. They were then mothballed, to be quite honest, which happened to November X-ray 611. The last Lancaster with Bomber Command finished its job in December 1953. And we lost our last Lancaster, which at that point was doing a maritime patrol aircraft role on the 15th of October 1956. But Lancasters continued to serve with the Royal Australian Air Force and indeed the Royal Canadian Air Force as late as 1963. Okay? So they had a good lifespan, amazing aircraft. Now, as Philip says, it's a reverse TARDIS. It looks huge sat there, doesn't it? 102-foot wingspan, 69 feet 6 inches long, of which 33 feet is the actual bomb bay. Okay, you'll get to walk under that. Wow. Don't touch the bombs. Okay, and whoever is bomb aimer, don't drop the bombs. Otherwise, you'll be picking them up again. Okay, they're only 500-pounders. You'll be fine. All right. So, how much do you think in 1943? Approximately, it would cost to build a Lancaster. Obviously, this is in old money, okay? Who wants to have a guess? Be brave. Come on.
50 grand?
Ooh, not bad, sir. £58,964, approximately, okay? But all that gets you, ladies and gents, is the airframe, 4 Merlin engines, 4 propellers, and the avionics to fly the aircraft. It's a bit like going for your brand new car. You have to go down the optional extras list, okay? And you have to say, oh, tell you what we'll have. We'll have 8 Browning 303 machine guns, tick, okay? We'll have a wireless set, tick. We'll have a mid-upper turret, tick. And it's literally building it up in kit form from the basic Lancaster. So about 70 grand in total, okay? Which these days, I'm led to believe, is about 2.5 million in new money. Okay, which is nothing compared to a Typhoon, is it? Which is in the billions, okay? So, bomb loads. We've mentioned the Grand Slam, we've mentioned the Tallboy, and we've mentioned the upkeep. We've also mentioned the sea mines, okay? And when you get under the bomb bay doors, you will see on the side a little poster that gives you the configurations of how the bombs could be loaded in. I think we've only got 6 or 8 in today, okay? But you can see all the different configurations. 2 Browning 303 machine guns in the nose, 2 in the mid-upper turret, and originally she would have had 4 in the rear turret. Our Lancaster, because she wasn't built until April 1945, actually has the upgraded Fraser-Nash 82 turret, which has 2.5-inch machine guns. Much better for trying to, how can I say this nicely, shoot down German night fighters. Okay, the 303 was rubbish. Left over from World War I, millions of rounds, but it's built to go through you and me, not through the engine block of a Messerschmitt. Okay, so we had to upgrade. More about that when we get inside. It'll be very good. Okay, I promise you. So what about the crew themselves then? The guys that you will be sitting or standing in the footsteps of today. Originally, the crew was 7, but by the end of the war, there may have been an 8th member on board. Your average age would be 23, and you could come from any of the Allied countries. So a crew could be made up of Irish, Scots, Welsh, New Zealanders, Canadians, South Africans, Indians, okay, anybody. It was not just necessarily an English or a Welsh crew or something like that. You'll have done an inordinate amount of training, some of you. Pilots, bomb aimers and navigators, anything up to 18 months. If you're a pilot, you will have gone to America, Canada or even South Africa to learn to fly, okay? Shocking. Any pilots in the room? Didn't think so? Okay. How do you know there's a pilot in the room? Because they'll tell you. Yes, ma'am, absolutely. Hi, I'm a pilot. Okay. They will. they have to tell you, they can't not. It's in the contract when you get your wings, okay? So you will be there, okay? And it doesn't matter what rank that pilot is. He can be a sergeant. He is in charge of the aircraft, okay? So let's start at the front with our bomb aimer, okay? Yes, he is there to drop the bombs, but he also has two other jobs. Number one, he is the nose turret gunner, and he will spend 98% of his 7 hours to Berlin and back, okay, sitting, waiting to fire those two Browning 303 machine guns. About 10 minutes before we're due to drop the bombs, he will come down into the position which he will be in today, and he will line up his sights and drop his bombs. He's also there as a little bit of a lookout for the navigator, because he can see exactly where we're going. Yes, I know it's night time, okay, but he can give indications. Moving into the cockpit then, we have the pilot on the left-hand side. As I said, 18 months training, somewhere nice and hot and out the way, okay, and then he'll come back. And next to him we have a flight engineer. Now the reason we have a flight engineer is you cannot trust a pilot to do more than one thing at once. Okay? It's hard enough for them to fly in a straight line. So he needs someone with him to make sure that everything's going well. In a Spitfire, for example, you have one engine. We have 4. Okay? Pilot can't deal with more than one at a time. So we have the flight engineer. Behind them would be the navigator. And he is the man who is going to get us to the target and, more importantly, get us home again. Okay? Now, he will use what we call dead reckoning. There is no sat-nav. Okay? There is no lady standing behind him going, turn left now, like there is in my car. Okay? Or my husband going, you missed a turning. All right? He has to do it by dead reckoning. So he will take into account the weather, the wind speed, the altitude, the speed of the aircraft, and he will make sure we get to our turning points and to the target at the right time, at the right speed, and at the right height. More importantly, as soon as we've dropped the bombs and turned round, he will get us home again, making sure we do not get caught by flak or anything and German night fighters. So he's a very important man. Okay? The last person that really sits in the cockpit is the wireless operator. Okay? Usually a sergeant, senior NCO. All aircrew were senior NCOs or officers, and you are all volunteers. No one has been coerced to be here today, have they? You've all volunteered. That's a good thing. Okay? So, knowing Morse code and being able to send it either electronically or by flashlight was not enough for the RAF to make you a sergeant. You were also dual trained as an air gunner. In the unhappy event that our mid-upper or rear gunner were killed, you, because your job is 99% redundant once we're flying, because we're in radio silence, you take their place. Okay. Moving back, we then have the 2 main gunners, the mid-upper and tail end Charlie, and I'll tell you lots more about them when we get inside. Now, I mentioned that 8th crew member. Okay. To start with, the H2S radar that I mentioned was actually worked by the navigator, and you'll see a box sitting on the wall by his desk. Towards the end of the war, as it got slightly more sophisticated, there may have been a separate radar operator on board. Now, Just Jane was converted in the 1950s to be a maritime patrol aircraft for the French, and where she has the radar kit today, it's authentic to 1945, it didn't change that much in 5 years, okay? That's where that radar operator would have sat. If it's not a radar operator, it could be a special operator with another wireless set. This was a gentleman, usually German, quite often a Jew who'd escaped from the regime early on, okay? And we would employ them to go up and speak in German to try and confuse those German night fighters, okay, by giving them false instructions and that sort of thing. Again, we can talk more about that when we get inside. So that's our 7 or 8 crew members, okay? Everyone will tell you today, okay, we are here to commemorate those gentlemen who did not make it back, as well as the guys who served for the entire war and beyond, okay. 55,573 losses. East Kirkby alone, over 800 in that 20 months of operation, okay. When we get out onto the grass, for those of you that are taxiing, as Andrew said, we'll come to a complete stop. He's going to rev those engines up to what is only 2/3 of takeoff power, okay? But to you and me, it's going to feel brill, trust me. Tail end Charlie's going to be sat there like this, in the back, right? Those in the front will be there going, ooh, this is very good, okay? But trust me, it's going to be great. And then we're going to rumble down that grass strip, okay? It's only about 25 miles an hour. It will feel like 100. It's great, okay? It's like being in a go-kart, if you've ever been in a go-kart, okay? But just when he revs those engines up, just before he lets the brakes off, just take a couple of seconds, close your eyes, and just think that this could be the last time that crew was actually taking off from East Kirkby Airfield. Okay? That's what we're about here, and that's what we like and try to remember every day we do this. I will see you on board. We will now introduce you to Alan, okay, our photographer, and I'll see you in about 5 minutes to work out where we're all going to sit or stand.